Bagaimana nggak bangga guys? Saya aja orang Indonesia mendengarkan kabar ini sangat bangga. Buatan asli Malaysia loh. Asli Malaysia. Digunakan dari kakek sampai cucunya. Bahkan cucunya ini sudah punya anak, masih juga menggugah hati saya. Bagaimana ternyata buatan tangan Malaysia sangat dicintai di Eropa sana guys. Ya Allah. Saya bisa gila guys. Saya bisa gila bila mengingat-ingat hal itu.
One, two, three, come on!
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo guys, berjumpa lagi hari ini masih dengan saya. Apa kabar Anda semua di sana? Tentunya doa yang baik-baik. Semoga kita dalam keadaan baik-baik saja, sehat senantiasa, jasmani juga rohaninya. Dan apapun itu pekerjaan, kegiatan, aktivitas yang kita lakukan, yang kita kerjakan di dalam maupun di luar rumah, semoga juga diberikan kemudahan dan juga kelancaran oleh Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa. Amin, amin, ya rabbal alamin. Satu kisah unik, menarik, dan langka yang akan kita bahas di sini guys ya. Asli ini sangat mengejutkan. Kisah tentang apa itu? Oke, di sini kita bahas tentang orang Inggris yang berada di Inggris sana, yang mana dia mengaku sudah 3 generasi. 3 generasi dia memakai satu produk, menggunakan satu produk, yaitu adalah Proton buatan Malaysia guys ya. Waduh, ini membuat, wah, ini bukan kaleng-kaleng ya guys ya, membuat saya merinding. Asli harusnya orang Malaysia bangga dengan hal ini. Bahkan produk Malaysia itu diacungi jempol di Inggris guys. Bukan hanya kakeknya, bahkan sampai ke dia. 3 generasi masih memakai satu produk yang sama, yaitu adalah Proton. Nah, di sini kita akan menyaksikan bagaimana pengakuan dia selama dia menggunakan produk tersebut, Proton. Wah, keren ya guys ya. Wah, ini saya jadi iri nih ya, mengapa Malaysia bisa produknya sampai dibanggakan bahkan sampai di Inggris sana guys ya. Oke, kita saksikan video itu sekarang juga. Ini dia.
Has finally come out, and ladies and gentlemen, this is my Proton. It is a Malaysian-made saloon car from 1996, and I'm going to tell you why this is actually the best car in the world, because it is just a car. If someone said to you, make me a car, you'd probably end up with something like that. It is so simple. I love it. Let's go and have a look. Now, the Proton actually had a number of names, which I'll go through in a minute when we pull up Wikipedia to learn more about it. But the reason I bought this, as I've said in previous videos, is because my grandpa bought one brand new. It was cheaper to buy a brand new Proton than it was to purchase his company car when he retired, which was a Rover. So he bought one of these brand new in pretty much this colour as well. His was a K plate, so it's 4 years older than this, but they never come up for sale because they're basically made of tin foil and they do sort of rust away. But I think it's quite an elegant little thing. I like these little Protons. It's got a Mitsubishi 1.5 engine and a 3-speed automatic gearbox and a sunroof that absolutely doesn't leak everywhere. It doesn't leak at all. No, it's getting me now. It's got the leakiest sunroof in the world, and it's really funny because
Oke. Di sini guys, dia benar-benar sangat menyukai Proton ya. Dari kakeknya bahkan sampai ke dia, kenangan itu tidak pernah dia lupakan. Bahkan dia memiliki mobil Proton itu sudah lama ya guys, dari tahun mobil buatan 1996. Jadi sudah puluhan tahun. Ketika mobil itu berkendara di cuaca hujan, maka sunroofnya itu menetes air hujan tadi guys ya. Jadi saya pikir itu wajar karena masa usianya yang sudah cukup lanjut, tapi dia tidak pernah membuat mobil ini usang karena dia menggunakannya atas dasar kecintaannya, karena kenangan-kenangan itu guys, bersama kakeknya dulu. Dan itu terus berlanjut kepada dia bahkan anak-anaknya guys. Kita lihat. Baik, kita lanjutkan lagi.
depending on what angle the car's on, that depends who gets wet. It's like a game show. Right, speed bump. Oh, how is there so much water in the sunroof? I saw this for sale and just thought, oh, my grandpa had one of those. I'd really like to have one just to experience it. Look at the design of it. It's such a cool thing. I love the way you've got these wraparound rear lights. I mean, that wouldn't look out of place on a modern car today. So this one is actually an SL, so it's a 1.5 MPI, but it was also known as the Proton Saga. It was just known as the Proton. It was known as the Proton 1.5. They almost couldn't decide what this car was actually called. I love it. Let's go and take a look at the engine. So here it is then. I'm pretty sure it's a multi-point injection Magma 12 valve engine, very, very simple technology, but you can see there's pot marks of rust everywhere, and I'm not quite sure what's going on with that top mount. It's just little bits of rust because the metal on these cars is so thin, but I love that this one has survived. I also really like this feature here. I feel like there's a piece missing, but I don't think there is. Maybe Proton people can correct me in the comments. Am I missing a piece here? Or is this just how the indicator looks? Sort of inverted there. Really strange. It's the same on both sides. So it is quite a lovely little thing. I really like this little Proton. It's nice and simple to drive. And like I said, it is basically just a car. If you said to someone, can you build me a car? This is what they would come up with. It's so beautifully simple. I love simple cars. You know that I like simple cars and I like oddball stuff, but mostly bought this because my grandpa had one. Now, it's not the cleanest inside, and my kids have ruined the back seats by eating miniature heroes on the way back from Nanny's house yesterday. Why are you doing that? I think it is Christmas. But let's have a look at this really simple dashboard. The lights are just on a little roller dial here, and I love that. It's really nice and simple. That's my indicator stalk just there, and my high beam, and there's no stalk on the other side, and it's a single spoke steering wheel. Again, very cool. You'd probably find that on a modern electric car these days. It's a 3-speed automatic gearbox, so it really does tear up the road, as you can imagine. And then the dashboard, look. I'll shut the door because these people are playing football outside. Again, beautiful in its simplicity. And now you'll notice that this car's only done 11,000 miles. That is genuine mileage from new. I'll talk to you about the history of this car in a moment. Over here we've got a quartz clock. Can we hear it ticking?
Semua masih
Probably not. Some basic sliders for our heating controls. Obviously no air conditioning because that would overcomplicate things. I've got a little pull-out drawer just there. And you can see the original owner, Mr. F.J. Stevenson, and he ran the plate P5 FJS. He's had this car pretty much all of its life. Two really simple buttons here. I think that's heated rear screen and the hazard lights, which are now flashing. Then I've got a little pull-out drawer just there, which has got some grandpa sweets and stuff in there. Cigarette lighter, Blaupunkt tape player, which is pretty cool. As I said, automatic gearbox, a normal handbrake because it is a normal car. I got a handy little cubby tray just down there, and then my glove box, which is here. I've got some bits and bobs of paperwork and a timing disc as well for Cumbria County Council. You know that you've bought a car from an old person when you find one of these in it. It doesn't come with a huge amount of history, not a great deal of paperwork with it, but I'll go through all of that later on. But as I say, the mileage is genuine. So that is that's the MOT from, what year was that issued? 2024 this year. So it's done most of its mileage this year actually, because it was on 8,500 miles earlier this year. So someone's put some mileage on this car, which I think is pretty cool. All right, cool. So I love these pull handles. This is what I remember from Grandpa's car. Just a really simple pull handle. You can see the plastic is fading. I mean, everything is incredibly plastic and incredibly cheaply done. But that was the point, as I said. It was cheaper for my grandpa to buy a brand new Proton than it was to buy a second-hand Rover 216. And I love it. I remember going down to Cornwall in this car. Well, not this one exactly, but my grandpa's car. And he was very, very proud of his Proton. He loved his Proton, even though all of my uncles took the mick because they thought it was a terrible car. I mean, at the time, Proton had not long been in the UK and were an unknown brand. So, you know, for snobby car people, this was an absolute heap. There's one more thing I want to show you. Oh no, I can't do that because the boot's full of stuff. We'll do that later on. I just love the simplicity. Like the boot's got no lining. It's just all metal in there, like a car from the 70s, like an old Cortina or something like that. But I don't know, I love the simplicity of this. It's really nice to drive. It's peppy in first gear. Nice little car around town. I like the sort of innocence of it. So let's go for a little drive and go down the unit and retrieve my Saab. Actually, we're going to swap this for a Saab Turbo, which is very different. But that's what we're doing today. We are messing around in the Proton. Thankfully, the weather is cleared because it was horrible earlier on. And this one's not too rusty. I mean, there's a lot of surface for us there. But I mean, if you were really keen, what you could do is just, you know, get your grinder out and start carving away at that and repaint it. Not going to be an issue. I do think this car really deserves to survive, being such a low mileage car on just 11,000 miles. Perfect car to take to something like the Festival of the Unexceptional, because it is indeed very unexceptional, but I think it's exceptional in what it is and the fact that it survives. And I remember these stickers as well on Grandpa's car. OK Proton. That was their sort of marketing tagline. Only unleaded will do. I nearly put premium in it yesterday actually, but then I decided with only a 3-speed gearbox probably wasn't worth the extra expense, you know, to really make the most of all 3 gears. Right, let's go for a little drive out before we lose the light. Look at my key.
Okay. Saatnya.
That's my key.
Oh.
And what's funny is the locks are quite stiff and the edges of the key are quite sharp.
Ya, memang
so you can
bentuk itu
actually
ya kalau udah
hurt your
lama
fingers
ya.
just
dari
by trying to
zaman
unlock
dulu.
your car. And I like that someone's written Pouton on it. So nice, simple car, which is what we like. Let's have my wipers off. Let's have the lights off so you can hear this bad boy fire up. I love it. Oh, and if I look like I'm wet, because the sunroof's leaking, and it's quite fun. You can play a game where you never know where the water's going to come from. I don't know how the sunroof is holding as much water as it is.
Oh,
That's the noise it makes when you switch the blowers on as well. It sounds like there's like
dengan suara
30 years worth of
mesinnya tadi ya.
dust and rust in the blowers. But I like it. I love simple cars. You know this from watching my channel. Let's put the windows up. World's slowest windows, but electric windows. What a luxury! Obviously in the back they're wind up. So this is the 1.5 MPR. That first gear is really peppy. It does. It picks up really nicely. I really like the way it drives. I'm very fond of the little Proton. The thing is, because it's only got 3 gears, it's really good at like up to 40 miles an hour, and it's not very good at doing hills.
Juga rasa
And then when you try
tarikannya
and do
juga
motorway
masih
speeds,
mantap.
the problem is you're doing about 12,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour. So I can't imagine it's going to be a very economical car if you're going to do long distances. But if you're going to do what my grandpa did, which is basically retire and use it to drive to church and occasionally pop into Helston or Penzance because they retired to Cornwall, then I'd imagine it's the perfect car, which is why my grandpa had this car so long and enjoyed it. It was his final car before he passed away. I think it was Parkinson's or cancer. I can't remember. I wasn't too old at that point, but yeah, Grandpa loved his Proton, and when Grandpa passed away, it left a big hole in the family. It really did. Grandpa kind of stitched everybody together. And yeah, I don't know, it was kind of synonymous. Everybody knew that it was Barry's Proton. It was that thing. And like I say, I can remember how much stick all of the uncles gave him for buying this Proton at the time, but he loved it, and he had it in a very similar colour to this. It was a turquoise. I think his was a manual though, so his would have been a 5-speed manual. But as I've made videos about this before, I distinctly remember anytime you went anywhere with Grandpa in the Proton, you weren't allowed to touch the rear windows. You weren't allowed to mess with anything, and Grandpa went everywhere like your typical pensioner at about 50 miles an hour. So it's really nice to have been able to buy and experience a Proton, because as I say, they never really come up for sale, and not in this condition, not with this mileage, and not as a saloon either. So yeah, love it. Very nice to be driving around in my grandpa's Proton. That's what we're doing. We're going to pick up some Christmas presents, then we're going to go down the unit and park this in the unit, keep it out of the rain, because if I leave it outside it's going to rust away, and we'll hopefully swap to the Turbo Saab for the run back.
Tidak ada kendala apapun ya guys, berjalan lancar-lancar saja. Itu menandakan bahwa masih bagus sekali.
Right then, so part of the light is absolutely beautiful, and if you live in the UK, you'll know that in the winter we get about 12 minutes of daylight each day, so you've got to film while you can. So who are Proton then? That's the question. Proton Holdings are known as Proton, is a Malaysian multinational automotive company established on May the 7th, 1983 as Malaysia's sole national budget car company until the advent of Perodua in 1993. Company's headquartered in Shah Alam, Selangor, and operates additional facilities in Proton City, Perak. Sorry, I probably said that completely wrong. Proton began manufacturing rebadged versions of Mitsubishi Motors products in the 80s and 90s, produced its first indigenously designed non-badge engineered car in 2000 with the Mitsubishi engine. So this is essentially a Mitsubishi. It elevated Malaysia as the 11th country in the world with the capability to design cars from the ground up. And since the 2000s, Proton has produced a mix of locally engineered and badge engineered vehicles. In May 2017, DRB Hycom announced plans to sell a 49.9% stake in Proton and a 51% stake in Lotus to Chinese company Geely. And the deal was signed in 2017, and Lotus has ceased to be a unit of Proton. So Lotus was involved with Proton, and they made a really cool car called the Wyra, the little Proton coupe. Very funky little thing with big bolt-on arches and gold wheels. So that's a little bit on who Proton are then. So founded in 1983, Proton approached Mitsubishi Motors between 1983 and 84 and brokered a joint venture between both companies for the production of the first Malaysian car. The result of the collaboration was the Proton Saga. This car launched on July the 9th, 1985. So the early ones were 1985. This is a 96. So it was largely unchanged in those 11 years. The Saga was based on the second generation 1983 Mitsubishi Lancer, powered by a 1.3-litre Mitsubishi Orion 4G13 engine. The first Saga to roll off the production line in Shah Alam is preserved in the National Museum. I'd like to go to the museum. I'd like to go to Malaysia and go see the first one. Sales of the new Saga outstripped supply. That's brilliant. The Proton struggled to meet the growing demand, but by 1986 it had captured a 64% majority domestic market share in the below 600cc segment. That's why this car and the Proton brand is so popular in Malaysia, because they were just brilliant. It blew the market apart. Later in October 87, a hatchback variant called the Saga Aeroback was launched, picture here, with the more powerful 1.5-litre Mitsubishi engine and a redesigned rear end. Exports to Ireland began in 1988, and by 1989, Proton had entered the UK car market with the Saga Saloon and hatchback, where the Malaysian company set the record for the fastest selling make of new car ever to enter the United Kingdom, because pensioners like my granddad rushed out and bought them in droves, because for the price of a second-hand Rover, you could have a brand new Proton with Mitsubishi running gear. On the 15th of August 92, the Saga Iswara was launched. God, that sounds good. Audi Quattro A4. It shares the older Mitsubishi platform used in the original Proton Saga, but its exterior and interior styling are unique to the Proton. The Saga Iswara was widely used as taxi cabs in Malaysia during the 90s and 2000s.
Dan sudah kita saksikan ya guys ya, bagaimana orang Inggris yang menyatakan langsung bahwa dia betul-betul berminat dengan kereta yang satu ini, yaitu adalah Proton. Nah, kalau berpikir tentang Proton ya guys ya, ini mengingatkan saya dengan EV EMAS 7. Betul-betul saya tidak dapat melupakan itu guys, EV EMAS 7. Nah, di sini orang Inggris mengakui bahkan dari tahun 1996 dia memberi kereta buatan 1996 ya guys ya. Bahkan sampai sekarang dia juga masih menggunakan itu. Atas dasar apa? Karena dia masih teringat juga kakeknya dulu pernah membeli Proton. Daripada membeli mobil second, lebih baik dia membeli mobil baru dengan harga yang sama, yaitu adalah Proton. Ya, saingan Proton di masa itu adalah Opel ya guys, dan juga Chevrolet ya. Itu adalah satu bangsa level yang sama di dalam bangsa pasar Eropa guys. Ya, ternyata. Namun spesialnya Proton ini memiliki harga yang jauh lebih rendah. Bahkan dari mobil-mobil Eropa, harga bekasnya saja, harga secondnya itu sama dengan mobil baru Proton. Makanya banyak sekali orang Inggris, termasuk kakeknya ini, membeli mobil Proton yang baru daripada membeli mobil-mobil yang second pada masa itu. Dan akhirnya banyak sekali kenangan-kenangan yang mereka lalui di dalam Proton itu guys ya. Bercanda tawa, bersenda gurau, dan hal-hal lainnya. Itu tentu saja memori yang akan mengingatkan kembali masa-masa dia bersama ayah dan juga kakeknya. Dan masa itu kakeknya sekarang sudah tidak ada lagi, sudah meninggal dunia, dan dia masih tetap memakai produk yang satu ini, yaitu adalah Proton. Bagaimana nggak bangga guys? Saya aja orang Indonesia mendengarkan kabar ini sangat bangga. Buatan asli Malaysia loh. Asli Malaysia. Digunakan dari kakek sampai cucunya. Bahkan cucunya ini sudah punya anak, masih juga naik mobil Proton ini. Kurang bangga apa lagi guys? Kurang bangga apa lagi melihat semua ini? Nah ini guys, satu bukti bahwa tetap saja Proton itu masih dinikmati, masih disukai oleh banyak-banyak orang di Eropa sana. Nah ini sudah ada buktinya kan? Sudah kita saksikan ya, bagaimana dia mengulas Proton itu secara detail. Dan dia mengatakan langsung bahwa suatu saat dia akan pergi ke Shah Alam Selangor. Rupanya disitulah pembuatan mobil Proton selama ini yang dia tahu guys, pada masa itu ya. Dan benar-benar ini menggugah hati saya, bagaimana ternyata buatan tangan Malaysia sangat dicintai di Eropa sana guys. Proton ya. Jadi jangan pandang sepele lagi. Apalagi kalau kita lihat Proton EV EMAS 7. Ya Allah. Saya bisa gila guys. Saya bisa gila bila mengingat-ingat hal itu. Baik, demikian tadi video aku. Semoga video ini bermanfaat bagi kita semua. Dan aku mohon maaf jika ada kesalahan kata, kesalahan sikap, dan semua mohon dimaafkan. Dan aku akhiri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.